Good evening to all. Namaste. Today we will discuss very important topics, that is, should we embrace changes? My analysis of the topic is related whether we should embrace changes fully, whatever comes in our life, or we should oppose changes fully, or we should embrace changes selectively. That is the important point to be discussed today. My views is that we should embrace changes selectively and oppose the changes that is harmful to us or a society as a whole. Before going to the topic, let us discuss today about the result of India and West Indies match. India vanquished West Indies by massive margin. West Indies suffered immense defeat. Everybody was aware of the fact that West Indies cannot win. But nobody has thought that there will be so massive defeat. Of course, nobody can predict in cricket. Cricket is the glorious game of uncertainty. This team may also win in future. But here my point is that everybody knows once upon a time West Indies team was number one team in the world. They have a top class fast bowler like Malcolm Marshall, Andy Roberts, Joel Garner, Michael Holding, Courtney Ambrose. Similarly, batsmen like Vivian Richards, Desmond Haynes, Greenwich, Clive Lloyds. So their fast bowler was able to create tremor, trepidation, consternation in the mind of a top class batsman. Everybody was fearing their fast bowlers. That is why Gavaskar is regarded as one of the best opening batsmen in the world, because he has performed magnificently against West Indies fast bowler. The team that dominated entire world cricket in the 1980 now has been relegated to ignominious stage. It has hit the rock bottom. It has reached the subterranean level, and a level where it is also too difficult to come back. That is the important thing. Why they suffered? Because they could not adapt to changes. They could not visualize the decline in the quality of their team. But when they discovered that they have been pushed into such stage, they are unable to revive. Quality of their game has declined. That is the important thing. What I want to draw some conclusion, that history is strewn with the wreckage of individuals who do not adapt to changes. History is strewn with the wreckage of individual or institution which do not adapt to changes. And when one does not adapt to changes, it does not feel the deterioration in quality, performance immediately. It deterioration becomes slow, gradual. But when any individual or any institution or any organization or any political party invent itself or find itself that it has been in a bad shape, at that time things do not favor for recovery. So it is imperative, it is necessary, it is advisable to adapt to changes. Something that some resist changes, some oppose innovation, some has a psychological to resistance changes. Here important thing is that I do not suggest that one should embrace all changes without scrutiny, without examination, without introspection. One should not embrace all changes blindly, unfettered, unhindered, unrestrained. One should examine an institution, any organization should examine whether changes is inevitable to adopt the society, adopt the new environment. Because when there is some changes in the environment, where there is some changes in different industry, where there is changes in different countries, even you have to cope with this situation, otherwise you will perish, otherwise you will decline. But here is the important thing what I want to say. You should examine which changes you will embrace, which changes you will not embrace. For example, in the rainy season, there is heavy torrential rain. Bad wind or smelly windy are flowing into your house through a window and a door. At that time, you have to close the door. Similarly, when there is a healthy wind is coming to your house, you have to open the door. Sometimes you have to shut the window and the door, sometimes you have to open the door. That power should have a country. Any country or any individual, any institution when embrace changes, they should have been endowed with the authority, capability, possibility to adapt, embrace changes or to reject changes. But in the process of liberation, globalization, many developing countries, including India, have embraced changes where they have no economic sovereignty to oppose the changes or close the door when that affects their citizen or a country. Many may think, many may also analyze. When Manmohan Singh introduced liberation process, he has cited, he has quoted Victor Hugo. What Victor Hugo had told? That no power on the earth can stop an idea whose time has come. Or in other words, nothing is more powerful than the idea whose time has come. Manmohan Singh is considered as one of the greatest prime minister who had never interfered in media, who had given utmost independence to media, writer, columnist. Under his duration, democracy was flourishing. That is the important thing. And he was the protagonist of a liberation process, which is debatable. But he has an immense contribution, and when he introduced the liberation process, something there was no alternative to this process. That is a different story which I do not want to discuss now. But now almost all countries have reached a stage where in such a environment where all are opening their economy. But my point of view is that nothing is wrong in opening the economy or allowing multinational company, but one should be controlled to regulate, restrict, restrain them, which is not possible today in the entire world. Simultaneously also another question arises that the country like USA, which has propagated liberation process, globalization process, privatization process, are retreating the process of globalization because this process now start to not benefiting those countries. They are resorting to protectionism. They are imposing the tariff. They are preventing their companies to invest in developing countries. That means its question is not whether liberation was right or wrong, or it was inevitable, indispensable. Question is that one should understand the liberation process was imposed on world or different countries to benefit the richer countries or developed countries or multinational companies. That is the important point. Another important thing is that liberation process on one hand has triggered economic growth. It has led to higher economic growth. But it has, on the other hand, it has increased inequality. It has led to massive privatization of health, education, and essential sectors, important sectors. The gap between wealthy, rich, and helpless people, poor people, has been widened. That is important thing. One may raise question whether those who have opposed liberation are right or wrong. If economy is expanding, tax is growing, then whether they were right or wrong. First, I want to tell that we are not just expanding, others are also expanding. Difference of growth is varies. Once upon a time, our economy, Indian economy, was same as the size of the China economy. But now size of the China economy is 5 times more than Indian economy. Despite high growth, Despite India claiming to be the most highest growing country, India is placed abysmally in all index. India continues to occupy 142 position in terms of nominal per capita GDP. India is still continues to be lower middle class country, forgot rich to become a rich country and developed country. In the Manmohan Singh era, it was became the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity in 2011. So nobody says that growth or improvement or GDP has grown in this period. That is the important thing. But my point of view is that whether we should give credit to those who opposed liberation process or those who introduced the liberation process. The important thing is that those who opposed liberation process vehemently, they contributed to more because they acted like as a brake. A speeding vehicle without a brake could create havoc. It can kill people. Had not they opposed, there would be no public sector in India. Multinational company would have totally captured the Indian economy. All sector would have been in the private hands. There should not be a concept of a public sector. There should not be a human approach in society. Everybody should think of owning, garnering money, wealth. Though now it is happening. So those who opposed, they pushed government, they coerced government, they battered the government to adopt policy to switch to some extent to Indian economy. That is the greatest contribution by those forces who have opposed the liberation process. Had they not opposed, our Indian economy would have been a different shape. People would not have economic sovereignty. That we must appreciate. Those who have opposed. Now, another thing is that embracing changes, certain thing is beyond one's control. One has to accept changes. If it is within one's control, if one does not embrace the changes, if it does not harm either his person concern or any industry concern or in the country concern, then it should oppose the changes if it is bad. But changes should be according to not the multinational company or finance capital. Changes should be embraced according to the need. Yes, those who have not adapted changes have vanished, have perished, have succumbed. Many companies like Bajaj Scooter, Nokia, telephone, many industries. You see Fiat car, Ambassador car, Kinetic Honda. They have out of market today. So technological upgradation, improvement in information technology, providing best possible customer service is important. Changes necessary for this purpose should be embraced. Greatest important thing is which liberation, protagonist of a liberation process do not say is the enhancing the human capital. It is the human being that operate everything. It is the human being shows sensitivity. It is human being that treats the customer, people properly. It is the human being that handle the machine. If we escalation, amelioration, improvement of human capital is ignored, then qualitative aspect of society, life, industry, institution is likely to be deteriorated, which nobody discusses. That is why my point of view is that one should not be blindly opposed to changes. Even one opposed, one will be perish. But embrace changes selectively, not unfettered or unrestrained. Embrace changes for the betterment of society, betterment of your industry, betterment of a human being, betterment of a country, betterment of the overall humanity. Here I can cite one issue that create a sense of grievance, heartburning, that create a sense of anxiety, that create a sense of desperation in the people who thinks of the humanity, the people who think of the country, the people who think of the society. That is artificial intelligence. I am not opposing the artificial intelligence totally, but it should be used in such a way that can be beneficial humanity, society. It should not kill the humanity. It should not destroy, exterminate, or obliterate the human creativity, human thinking, human natural behavior. It should not replace the entire job. What is happening today? Yes, when technology comes, it should replace some jobs. But simultaneously, it should create job in somewhere. That is not happening. Even many give credits to some private companies, big private companies, that they are creating job. So they should be given huge concession. That is quite wrong. Had they not operated, this sector could have been owned by some other industry or a public sector. They are snatching just only jobs of other private sector or public sector. Overall job creation in organized sector is not increasing then. Why? Why job in the government and both state and central government is declining? You cannot compare life of today what was 40 years back. In 40 years back, having a cycle was an important thing in life. But today, having a car is a common thing in life. So you cannot treat others are rich because they have a cycle. You have to change the concept of status and a social well-being and economic well-being, the definition should be changed, poverty line should be changed. The country where 1% of population enjoys the 45% of national wealth, country where the inequality is more than the British era and 1% enjoys the 21.8% of national income. There lies the role of a state. There lies the role of a power of the state, not the private sector crony capitalist. State should decide which sector we open, which sector should not be open, which sector how much should be open, which sector we handed to be private sector, which sector should not be handed over to the private sector, which should be remain in the public sector. If I am asked, health and education should be provided free of cost. Financial sector should be remain in the hand of a government. Always there is a publicity blitzkrieg, supercilious claim that there is so much revenue, so much expenditure, so much by government, so much improvement, so much schemes. Then why there is no free health and education? That is why I advocate that we should embrace changes, but it should be selectively. Wrong changes should be opposed. Even if one fails to oppose, one should object the wrong changes. One may not be in a position to oppose a wrong changes. One may be forced to accept. But future generation will remember that such institutions, such organizations, such political parties, such trade unions have opposed this policy. Future generation will evaluate the present generation. That is my view, that changes is unchanges of law. Do not blindly oppose changes. Embrace changes, but for qualitative improvement of our humanity. Thanks. Namaste.